A barefoot boy stood on white carpet that cost more than his mother made in a year, staring at a vault that had never been opened. It wasn't a safe, exactly. It looked like a piece of art, a tall brass cabinet with a circular face etched with tiny tick marks, like a clock that refused to tell time. A man in a tailored suit leaned against the window wall, Seattle glittering behind him like a promise he'd already cashed. Callum Voss smiled without warmth. $50 million if you open it, he said. Right now, in front of everyone. Phones lifted, quiet laughter rippled. And then the boy, Noah Rios, 11 years old, barefoot and shaking, took a battered pocket watch from his pocket and pressed it to the cabinet like he was listening for a heartbeat. The laughter didn't fade. It stopped. Because the cabinet answered back, and for the first time in 4 years, something inside it clicked. How did an 11-year-old get here? It started 3 blocks away in a hospital hallway that smelled like sanitizer and burnt coffee. It started with a doctor who wouldn't meet his eyes when he said the number. $260,000. Not a total bill. Not eventually. A deposit up front before they could schedule the procedure. And the deadline wasn't a dramatic one, not fireworks and sirens. It was a quiet, clinical kind of doom. 48 hours. After that, they couldn't promise Marisol's heart would hold. Noah's mom, Sophia, nodded like she understood, like she could pull $250,000 out of a sock drawer. Then she walked into the bathroom and cried so hard she had to clamp her hand over her mouth to keep Marisol from hearing. Noah stayed in the hall, staring at the vending machine, listening to the soft beep of a heart monitor down the corridor like the building itself was counting down. He didn't have a plan. Not at first. Then, on his way home to grab a phone charger and the one sweater Marisol liked, he saw the old news clip playing on a TV in the corner of a convenience store. The volume was low. The captions did the talking. Voss founder's vault remains sealed. Experts stumped. CEO offers reward. Noah had seen it before. Everyone had. It was local legend, the kind people brought up at bus stops and barbershops like it was a ghost story. Callum Voss's mother, Lenora, had died 4 years ago. She'd left behind one thing her son couldn't buy, his way through a sound-locked vault cabinet built by her own hands. No keyhole, no keypad. Just that clock-like face, a brass door, and a mechanism that listened. Voss offered money. Then more money. Then an amount so big people started repeating it like a joke. Still, no one opened it. And now the clip was back on the screen because Voss Industries was going public in a week. Reporters were digging up anything with a heartbeat. Noah should have walked out of the store. He should have gone home, done his homework, pretended kids could still be kids. Instead, he felt the pocket watch in his hoodie, the weight of it. The scrape on its back from the day his grandpa dropped it on the sidewalk and laughed like it didn't matter. It mattered to Noah, because his grandpa, Tomas Rios, didn't teach him about money. He taught him about patience, about tiny gears, about listening. Metal tells the truth, Grandpa used to say, hunched over a watch movement under a lamp near the Westlake overpass. People can lie. Metal can't. Noah learned how to feel the difference between a stuck spring and a broken one. He learned that the smallest parts can decide whether something lives or dies. And on the night Grandpa passed away, he pressed the pocket watch into Noah's palm like it was a promise. When you're cornered, Grandpa whispered, voice thin as paper, you don't panic. You listen. You let the thing tell you what it needs. Noah didn't understand then. He understood now. He left the convenience store and walked faster than his legs wanted to move, cutting through wet streets and puddles that turned headlights into long white streaks. It wasn't even cold, not really, but the sidewalk bit at his feet. He didn't have shoes. They'd been stolen outside their apartment building 2 weeks ago, one of those small humiliations poverty collects like receipts. He told himself he didn't care. He told himself he liked being barefoot because he could feel the ground better. The truth was, it was one less thing to ask his mom for, one less thing to watch her face tighten over. So he walked barefoot through downtown Seattle with his grandpa's pocket watch in his pocket and his sister's life in his throat toward a building that made him feel like a smudge on glass. The Narrows spire rose near the waterfront like a clean, bright lie. Noah stopped across the street looking up until his neck hurt. He had no appointment, no connection, no permission, just a number that would kill his sister if nobody paid it. He crossed when the light changed. Inside the lobby was too quiet, like even sound had to pay rent. Polished stone floors reflected his legs and his frayed backpack straps. A wall of living plants climbed toward a mezzanine, like nature had been hired as decoration. A security guard looked up from his desk and frowned like Noah was a glitch. "Hey," the guard said, already standing. "You lost." Noah swallowed. "I need to see Callum Voss." The guard blinked. Then he laughed once, sharp and small. "Buddy, so do a lot of people. You got a badge?" "No," Noah tried again. "It's about the vault." That word did something. It didn't open doors yet, but it turned a key inside the guard's face. A flicker confusion, then curiosity, then annoyance like he didn't want to be curious. "The vault," the guard repeated slowly. "You mean Lenora Voss's cabinet?" Noah nodded. "The one that listens." The guard's jaw tightened. "How do you know about that?" "Everyone knows," Noah said, and hated how tiny his voice sounded in this giant, clean room. The guard lifted a hand toward his radio, eyes still on Noah like he expected a punchline. Noah leaned in before the guard could decide he was just a stray kid with a sob story. "I can open it," he said. Silence landed hard. A receptionist at the far desk stopped typing. A woman in heels paused mid-stride. Even the plants looked like they were listening. The guard exhaled through his nose. "Sure you can." Noah didn't flinch. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the pocket watch. It wasn't fancy. The brass was scratched. The minute hand was missing. The glass had a hairline crack like a scar. But when Noah clicked it open, the sound was clean, precise, like something honest. "My grandpa taught me," Noah said. "And my sister's running out of time." For a moment, the guard's face softened just a sliver. Then it snapped back into policy. He keyed his radio anyway. "This is Trent at lobby," he said. "I've got a kid down here saying he can open, says it's urgent." The radio crackled with a woman's voice. "Hold!" Trent's eyebrows rose. He waited, eyes narrowing at Noah like he was trying to decide whether to hate him or pity him. Then the radio crackled again. "Mr. Voss says bring him up." Trent stared at the radio. Then at Noah. "Are you serious?" Noah didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just nodded because if he let himself feel hope right now, it might shatter. Trent waved him toward the elevator like he was escorting a stray dog into a museum. The ride up felt like falling in reverse. Noah watched the numbers climb 40, 50, 60, each ding a reminder that he didn't belong. Trent stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes forward. "You pull a stunt," Trent said quietly, "and I'm walking you right back down." "You hear me?" Noah looked at his own reflection in the mirrored wall. Skinny kid, wet hair, bare feet on expensive elevator carpet. "I'm not pulling anything," he said. "I'm trying to keep my sister alive." The elevator opened into a corridor that smelled like wood polish and money. A woman in a fitted blazer waited with a tablet in her hands. Her smile looked practiced like she'd learned it from a class. "Noah Rios," she asked. Noah froze. "How do you know my name?" Her eyes flicked to Trent, brief, annoyed, then back to Noah. "Mr. Voss knows a lot," she said. "This way." She led them past glass walls and quiet offices where people typed without looking up like they'd trained themselves not to witness anything human. At the end was a double door. Inside, a conference room opened like a stage, a long table, a skyline view, a sculptural light fixture overhead that looked like frozen lightning. 6 executives stood near the windows, casual in a way only rich people can be casual. 2 had phones already in hand. At the head of the table, leaning back in a chair like he owned air itself, sat Callum Voss. He was mid-40s, crisp hair, crisp suit, crisp expression. His eyes traveled over Noah like Noah was a statistic. Then Callum smiled. "Well," he said, voice smooth as polished stone. "This is new." One of the executives chuckled. Another lifted his phone higher. Callum glanced at Trent. He said the word. Trent's jaw clenched. "Yes, sir." Callum's gaze snapped back to Noah. "What's your name, Noah?" "Noah," Callum repeated, tasting it. "How old are you, 11? That got laughter, real laughter, like the room had been starving for a punchline. Callum raised a hand not to stop it, but to enjoy it. 11, he said. "And you believe you can open Lenora's cabinet?" Noah felt heat rise behind his eyes. He forced it down. "My grandpa was a watchmaker," Noah said. "He taught me how mechanisms listen." Callum's smile sharpened. "Mechanisms don't listen. People romanticize them. That's why they fail." Noah surprised himself by answering before fear could stop him. "No," he said. They fail because they don't respect the thing they're touching. The room went quiet not because they agreed, but because an 11-year-old had just spoken like he had a spine. Callum leaned forward. Respect, he echoed. Is that what you want, respect? No, Noah said. I want my sister to live. That landed differently. Some of the executives shifted. One cleared his throat like discomfort was choking him. Callum held Noah's gaze longer than Noah expected. For a second, something flickered in Callum's eyes. Then it disappeared behind amusement. You know, Callum said, standing. I've paid professionals, engineers, locksmiths, acoustics experts more money than most people see in a lifetime. They all failed. He walked to the wall behind him and pressed a panel. Wood slid aside like a secret. And there it was. The cabinet. Brass and glass, tall and elegant, with a circular face etched in tiny increments. It didn't look violent. It looked beautiful. That made it worse. It looked like the kind of beautiful thing you'd never be allowed to touch. Callum turned back to Noah. Here's my offer. He spoke like he was announcing a merger. If you open it, Callum said, I will pay you $50 million. Noah's brain tripped over the number. 50 million was a language he didn't speak. He did the math anyway because he couldn't help it. Marisol's deposit was $260, 000. 50 million minus 260,000 left $49.740000. Enough to keep the lights on forever. Enough to never watch his mom count coins again. Enough to make sure Marisol got to be 8 years old without thinking about dying. Callum's voice stayed calm. But he continued, if you fail when you fail, you will stand right there in front of all of us and admit you lied. One executive snorted softly like that was the fun part. Callum kept going. You will record a statement, he said, for our internal security training. You'll say you made it up for attention. You'll say you thought you could manipulate your way into money. Noah's hands curled into fists at his sides. That's cruel, he said, and his voice wobbled on the last word. Callum didn't deny it. That was the scariest part. Cruel, Callum agreed, like he was discussing weather, or educational. Depends who you are. Noah looked around the room at suits and watches and phones pointed at him like weapons. He felt the trap closing, and he also felt the hospital hallway, the doctor's voice, his mom crying into her own palm. He didn't have room for pride. He had room for one thing, choice. Noah lifted his chin. No recording, he said. Callum paused. Excuse me, no recording if I fail, Noah said, clearer now. You can laugh. You can tell me to leave, but you don't get to keep it. Not of me. The executives exchanged looks like the kid had just made a request in a foreign language. Callum stared at Noah, measuring him. You're negotiating, Callum said, almost entertained. Noah's knees threatened to shake, so he locked them. I'm setting a boundary, Noah said. My sister's the reason I'm here, not your entertainment. For a beat, nobody spoke. Then Callum's mouth twitched. Not kind, not fully amused, something in between. Fine, Callum said. No recording. If you fail, you speak it live and we move on. Noah nodded, throat tight. And if I win, you pay the hospital today. Not paperwork tomorrow. Today! That made Callum's eyes narrow. Grant Hale, the COO, stepped forward from the group near the window. He had the posture of someone who thought the world ran on schedules. That's not how transfers work, Grant said. There are compliance procedures. Noah looked at him. My sister doesn't have compliance time. Callum's gaze flicked to Grant, warning quiet. Then back to Noah. You get the deposit paid today, Callum said, and the rest goes into a trust by end of business. That's the best you'll get. Noah's heart hammered so hard he could hear it in his ears. He thought of Grandpa's hands guiding his. He thought of Marisol's small fingers clutching the blanket in her hospital bed. He thought of his mom trying to be brave with nothing left. Deal, Noah said. Callum stepped back with a showman's sweep of his arm. Then let's see it. Noah walked toward the cabinet. His bare feet sank into carpet so thick it felt like stepping into a cloud. He stopped inches from the brass door. Up close, he could see tiny wear marks on the etched face, like 1,000 failed attempts had left their fingerprints in the metal. Noah pulled out Grandpa's pocket watch. He held it against the cabinet's circular face. Then he closed his eyes. People think listening is just ears. Grandpa taught Noah it was fingers, wrists, breath, the way a spring fights back when it's tired. Noah clicked the pocket watch open and let it tick. A soft, steady pulse. Then he lifted the tuning fork, thin, tarnished, wrapped in tape, where Grandpa had cracked it years ago, and struck it gently against his thumb. A clean note rang out, barely audible. He pressed the vibrating fork to the brass. The cabinet answered with a faint, sympathetic hum. Noah's stomach flipped. Because it wasn't magic. It was resonance. The cabinet wanted a sequence, a set of tones and timing that matched the mechanism's internal ears. The experts had tried to force it. Noah did what Grandpa taught him. He let it speak first. He moved the tuning fork along the etched face, tapping lightly at different points. A wrong spot made the hum die. A right spot made it bloom. Noah's fingers found the rhythm. He turned the circular face a fraction. Stopped, tapped, turned again. The room behind him went silent in that heavy, predatory way, like a crowd watching a tightrope walker decide whether to fall. Grant muttered something under his breath. Callum didn't. Noah adjusted his breathing until his hands stopped shaking. Tick, tick, tick from the pocket watch. Tap, hum, tick, tick, tap. The cabinet's hum deepened, almost like it was moving from anger into recognition. Noah felt sweat slip down his spine. He tapped one last time in a pattern that felt ridiculous and inevitable all at once. Then he turned the face just a hair. A sound cut through the room. Not loud, not dramatic, just a clean final click. Noah opened his eyes. His throat was dry. I think he started. Callum's face had drained of color. "That's not possible," Callum whispered. Noah didn't look at him. He placed his palm against the brass door and pulled. It opened like it had been waiting. Air shifted cool and old, like the cabinet had been holding its breath for years. The executives surged forward without thinking, then stopped like they were afraid of what they'd see. Inside weren't stacks of money. No gold bars, no secret cash. There were cassette tapes, dozens of them stacked neatly in foam slots. And envelopes. Thick paper handwritten labels in careful script, every single one addressed to the same person, Callum Voss. To be opened when you finally stop trying to win. Callum's breath hitched like he'd been punched. His hand reached out and hovered over the first envelope without touching it. He looked at Noah like Noah had broken into his bones. "What did you do?" Callum asked. Noah swallowed. "I listened." Callum picked up the top envelope with shaking fingers. He turned it over. The seal was unbroken. For a second, the billionaire looked like an orphan. Then he tore it open. He read the first line, and his face cracked. Tears came fast, too fast to be controlled, sliding down his cheeks and catching on the edge of his perfect jaw. One executive looked away like he'd seen something private. Grant's expression hardened not with empathy, but with calculation. Noah stood there, hands tingling, pocket watch still ticking, and felt the room tilt, because the cabinet wasn't just a cabinet. It was a verdict. Callum pressed the paper to his chest like it could hold him together. His voice came out rough. "My mother made these." No one moved. Callum's eyes lifted to Noah. "Why are you here?" he asked again, but softer now, like he finally heard the answer the first time. Noah's voice shook anyway. "My sister needs a procedure. The hospital needs $260,000. We don't have it." Callum's jaw clenched like he was angry at the universe. Then he did something nobody expected. He pulled his phone out and walked away from the table, turning his back on the executives like they didn't exist. "Get me Harborview Children's," Callum said into the phone. "Cardiac intake, now." Grant stepped forward, alarm flashing. "Callum, we have counsel on standby." Callum lifted a finger without looking at him. "Not now." He listened, then spoke again, voice sharp. "Yes, my name is Callum Voss. I'm paying a deposit for a patient. Marisol Rios, 8 years old. You'll run it immediately." Pause. "No," Callum said colder. "You won't verify tomorrow. You'll verify right now. Put a supervisor on." Noah's legs felt weak. He gripped the edge of the table to stay upright. Callum's voice dropped. "Because if you delay this, I will spend the rest of my life making sure your department remembers my name for the wrong reasons." Noah didn't like the threat, but he couldn't pretend it didn't work. Callum ended the call and looked at Noah. "It's done," he said. "The deposit is paid. They're scheduling her." Softer, quieter, like he was talking to himself, it should have never come to this. Grant's voice cut in. "We still need documentation for the 50 million promise." Callum's eyes snapped to him. "You were filming 5 minutes ago," Callum said. "You can document your own shame." Grant didn't flinch. We are a week from IPO. We can't have impulsive transfers and emotional decisions. Callum stepped closer, voice low enough that the executives leaned in to hear. My mother is in that cabinet, Callum said, and I'm not listening to anyone who treats that like a risk factor. Then Callum turned to Noah. Where's your mom? He asked. At the hospital, Noah said. She doesn't know I'm here. Callum's face tightened. Then we're going there. Grant's head snapped up. Callum, you can't leave. The roadshow meeting starts in 30 minutes. Callum looked at him. Cancel it. Grant's voice went flatter. The board will not love that. Callum's eyes narrowed. Let them hate it. Noah expected Callum to hand him off to security to disappear back into his world after wiring money like tossing crumbs. Instead, Callum walked to the cabinet again and took 3 tapes and 2 envelopes, sliding them carefully into a leather folder like they were fragile organs. He pressed the wood panel closed. Then he looked at Trent, the security guard who'd been standing quietly at the door. Bring my car up, Callum said, and clear the elevator. Trent blinked like he wasn't sure he heard correctly. Yes, sir. Noah stood frozen. Callum stepped toward him and paused, eyes dropping to Noah's bare feet. He didn't make a joke. He didn't ask why. He just said, You're tougher than you should have to be. Noah didn't know what to do with that. So he looked away and clicked his pocket watch shut like it could hold him together. If you're still listening, stay with me because what was inside that cabinet was only the first lock that opened. The car was quiet in the way expensive cars are quiet, like they absorb chaos. Seattle blurred past the windows in gray streaks. Callum sat across from Noah in the back seat folder on his lap, hands clenched. He didn't read yet. He stared at the city like he was seeing it for the first time and hating what he noticed. Noah kept his pocket watch in his palm. Tick, tick, tick. Callum finally spoke without looking at Noah. My mother built that cabinet because she didn't trust me. Noah didn't answer. He didn't know if he was allowed to. Callum's jaw worked. I told myself it was her being dramatic, her being controlling, her trying to punish me. He exhaled, bitter. Maybe she was just accurate. Noah's throat tightened. My grandpa built watches, he said. He said people don't lock things because they hate you. They lock things because they're scared of what happens if the wrong person gets in. Callum's eyes flicked to him, sharp, surprised. Noah kept going because his fear didn't get to be the boss anymore. Maybe your mom didn't think you were wrong, Noah said. Maybe she thought you were busy, and she wanted you to slow down enough to hear her. Callum stared at Noah like Noah had reached into a place nobody else could find. Then Harborview rose ahead, all glass and white light with families clustered at entrances like they were bracing for impact. They pulled up to the drop-off. Noah saw his mom immediately, Sophia pacing phone in hand, shoulders high with panic. When she saw Noah climb out of a black luxury car, her face didn't soften. It went pale. Noah, she shouted, rushing toward him. Where were you? Then she saw Callum Voss stepping out behind him. Her steps slowed like she hit invisible ice. Callum adjusted his jacket like he was stepping into a boardroom, but his eyes were different now, tired, raw. Sophia pulled Noah close, fingers digging into his shoulders like she had to make sure he was real. What did you do? She whispered into his hair, voice shaking. What happened? Noah swallowed hard. I opened it, he said. Sophia pulled back, opened what Callum stepped forward gently like he didn't want to spook her. Mrs. Rios, he said, extending his hand. I'm Callum Voss. Sophia didn't take it. She looked at his hand like it was a contract. I don't know what game this is, she said, but my daughter is sick. I don't have time. Callum nodded once, accepting the hit without fighting it. No game, he said. Your son came to my office. He opened something no one could. I made a deal. I'm honoring it. Sophia's eyes narrowed. Deals have strings. Callum's throat moved. Not this one. Noah saw the war in his mom's face, the reflex to distrust the exhaustion of being tricked by systems too many times. Then Noah did the bravest thing he'd done all day. He reached for her hand. Mom, he said, steady, the deposit is paid. Sophia froze. What did you say? Callum spoke calmly. Harborview has the $260,000. They're scheduling Marisol as we speak. Sophia's knees nearly buckled. She grabbed Noah's arm to keep herself standing. Her voice came out like a crack. Why? Callum's gaze slid away toward the folder under his arm. Because my mother waited 4 years for me to become a person who could do the right thing, he said. and your son forced me to stop pretending I already was. They moved through the hospital together. People stared. Of course they did. Callum Voss in a children's wing was like seeing a storm cloud inside a church. Noah didn't care. He only cared about room 412. Marisol lay small in a bed that looked too big for her cheeks, pale, dark curls spread on the pillow like spilled ink. When Noah walked in, her eyes lifted. Her smile tried. It wobbled. "Hey," she whispered. "You're late." Noah swallowed the lump in his throat and moved to her side. "I had to do something," he said, voice breaking. "I did it, Mari." Marisol's gaze drifted past him to Callum, who hung back at the door like he wasn't sure he deserved to enter. Marisol squinted. "Is that—" the man from the TV? Noah gave a tiny laugh that sounded like a sob. "Yeah." Marisol's eyes widened a little. "Are you in trouble?" Noah shook his head. "No, not today." Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, smoothing Marisol's hair with shaking fingers. "Baby, they're going to help you," she whispered. "They're going to fix your heart." Marisol's eyes filled slowly. "For real?" Noah leaned down until his forehead touched hers. "For real," he said. "I'm not letting you go anywhere." A nurse entered with a tablet and a clipboard, moving fast in that hospital way, efficient kind but guarded. "Marisol Rios," the nurse confirmed. "We're prepping you for surgery. Dr. Patel is on her way down to speak with your family." Sophia's breath hitched. "Today," the nurse nodded. "Today." Marisol looked at Noah, fear creeping in like water under a door. "What if I don't wake up?" she whispered. The room went still. Sophia's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Callum's eyes dropped to the floor like he couldn't watch. Noah felt the old panic claw at him. He clicked the pocket watch open in his fist. Tick, tick, tick. He took Marisol's hand, small and cool. "Remember Grandpa's watch bench?" Noah asked. Marisol blinked. "The one that smelled like oil." Noah nodded. He said watches aren't alive, but they act like they are. They get stubborn, they get tired, they stop when they don't feel safe. Marisol's lips trembled. "My heart feels tired." "I know," Noah said softly. "But tired things can be fixed. They just need the right hands." Marisol stared at him, eyes glossy. "Are you sure?" Noah looked at her and made himself honest. "I'm sure we're doing the best thing," he said. "And I'm staying right here until you come back." Marisol's fingers tightened around his. Then she looked at Callum again. "Is he staying too?" Callum flinched like the question stabbed him. He stepped forward. "If your family wants me here," he said carefully, "then yes." Sophia's eyes flicked to Noah. Noah nodded, once small but clear. Sophia swallowed. "Stay," she said, voice thin. "But I'm watching you." Callum accepted that like a sentence. "You should." Dr. Patel arrived 20 minutes later, calm, direct eyes, tired in the way surgeons' eyes get when they've seen too many close calls. She explained the procedure in careful language. High risk, urgent, necessary. Sophia listened like she was trying to memorize every word as armor against fear. Noah heard the only part his brain could hold. 70%, Dr. Patel said. Noah clung to the number like a railing. 70% meant hope. 30% meant he couldn't breathe. When Marisol was wheeled away, Sophia kissed her forehead again and again until the nurse gently moved the bed forward. Noah walked beside the gurney until double doors stopped him. Marisol's eyes stayed on him until the doors closed. Then she was gone. Sophia collapsed into a chair in the waiting area like her bones had quit. Noah sat next to her, shoulder to shoulder, both of them staring at a wall like it might change if they stared hard enough. Callum sat across from them with the folder in his lap. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. He silenced it without looking. Then Grant Hale appeared in the waiting area like a shadow that knew how to wear a suit. He walked straight to Callum, face tight with restrained fury. "Callum," Grant said, voice low but sharp. "We have reporters calling the office. We have the road show starting. We have legal in a panic. You wired $250,000 to a hospital under your personal name without clearance." Callum didn't look up. It needed to happen. Grant's eyes flicked to Noah and Sophia like they were objects creating inconvenience. "You can't buy feelings with impulsive payments," Grant said. "We have process for a reason." Sophia's head snapped up. Her eyes were bloodshot but lethal. "My daughter isn't a process," she said. Grant smiled politely, cold as a locked door. "Ma'am, I'm sorry you're going through a difficult time." Noah's stomach turned. He'd heard that exact tone from landlords and billing departments and people who thought sympathy was a substitute for help. Callum finally looked up. "Grant," he said, voice quiet. "Leave." Grant blinked, like he wasn't used to being told no in public. "We need to talk," Grant insisted. "The board is asking if you're stable." Callum's jaw tightened. "Then tell them the truth," Grant scoffed softly. "The truth is, you made a $50 million promise to a child in front of witnesses." Callum held Grant's stare. "The truth is, I meant it." Grant leaned in. "If you go through with that transfer, the SEC will." Callum stood so fast his chair scraped. The sound made people look. Callum's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. "My mother built a vault to keep me out until I learned to be human," he said. "Today, an 11-year-old walked into my office barefoot and did what I couldn't do in 4 years. Grant's face hardened. "You're sentimental." Callum's eyes narrowed. "I'm accountable." Grant's lips pressed into a line. "The board will freeze you out." Callum nodded once. "Let them try." Grant's gaze flicked to Noah. "And what happens when this family goes to the press? When they turn this into a circus?" Noah's hands curled into fists. Callum didn't look at Noah. He looked at Grant. "If anyone turns this into a circus," Callum said, "it'll be the man who walked into a children's hospital and talked about process." Grant's face reddened. Then, he did something Noah didn't expect. Grant smiled. It was the kind of smile that promised consequences. "Fine," Grant said. "Sit here, hold hands, feel things." He glanced at Sophia. "Just so you know, ma'am, large transfers take time. Trusts take time. If you think this means you'll see $50 million by tomorrow, you're going to be disappointed." Sophia's shoulders stiffened. Noah saw it, the threat hiding in helpful information. Grant turned back to Callum. "When this blows back on you," he said softly, "don't blame me for trying to keep the company alive." Then he walked away, phone already at his ear. Sophia stared after him, breathing hard. Noah felt something sour crawl up his throat. Callum sat down slowly, face pale now. "I'm sorry," Callum said, and the words looked unfamiliar on him. Sophia's voice trembled with anger. "He's going to take it back." Callum shook his head once. "He can't take back the hospital deposit. But he can stop the rest," Sophia whispered. "People like him always find a way." Callum didn't deny that. Instead, he reached into the folder and pulled out one cassette tape. He stared at the label in his mother's handwriting. "Callum, Week 1. His fingers shook. Noah watched him like he was watching an adult decide whether to become real. Callum swallowed and looked at Noah. "You opened it," Callum said, "which means you earned the right to know something." Noah's heart sank. What Callum's eyes went distant. "My mother didn't just leave me letters. She left me evidence." Noah frowned. "Evidence of what?" Callum's jaw tightened. "Of what Grant has been doing behind my back." Sophia's head snapped up. "What does that have to do with us?" Callum looked at her. "It doesn't," he said. "It shouldn't. But if Grant gets control, he'll try to bury what's in that vault." Noah's voice came out small. "Why?" Callum exhaled. "Because it proves he's been steering the company into illegal waters. And my mother, she knew. She built the cabinet to keep it safe until I was brave enough to face it." Silence spread. Noah felt the story shifting under his feet. This wasn't just about money. This was about power. And power always came with teeth. Callum's phone buzzed again. A different name flashed on the screen. EVIE. Callum froze. Noah noticed the way his hand hovered like he didn't deserve to touch the call. Sophia's eyes narrowed. "Who's that?" Callum's voice went hoarse. "My daughter." Noah blinked. "You have a kid." Callum's mouth twitched pain, not humor. "Yes." He didn't answer. The phone buzzed again, then stopped. A minute later, a text appeared. "Evie, are you in a hospital? What did you do now?" Callum stared at the screen like it was an indictment. Noah clicked his pocket watch shut. He didn't know why, but he said it anyway. "Call her back," Noah said. Callum looked up, startled. "You don't know I know what it's like when adults leave," Noah said, voice tight. "And I know what it feels like when they don't even try to come back." Callum's throat moved. He looked at Sophia, then Noah, then the surgery doors like he was weighing lives. Finally, he hit call. Evie answered on the second ring. "What is going on?" Evie's voice came through sharp, tired, protective. I got 3 different messages saying you vanished and there's a rumor you paid off a hospital. Callum closed his eyes. Evie, he said softly. I'm at Harborview. Silence then. Why? Callum's voice shook. Because a little girl is in surgery. Because I made a promise I should have made years ago. Because Evie cut him off. Don't give me a speech. Callum swallowed. I won't. He looked at Noah like he needed help telling the truth. I'm trying, Callum said, and I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm asking if you can come here, just for 10 minutes, so you can see why I'm different today. Evie laughed once bitter. Different for a day isn't different. Callum flinched. I know. A beat. Then Evie exhaled. 10 minutes, she said. That's it. Callum's eyes filled with tears he didn't wipe. Thank you. When he hung up, he stared at the blank screen like he couldn't believe it worked. Sophia watched him, expression still guarded. You better mean it, she said quietly, because kids remember broken promises. Callum nodded. So do mothers, he said almost to himself. Hours crawled. Waiting rooms are their own. Universe time expands, then snaps, then expands again. Noah watched the clock like it was mocking him. He did the math over and over. If surgery started at 2:10 p.m. and lasted 8 hours, it could end after 1:000 p.m. 8 hours was a lifetime. Sophia fell asleep, sitting up for 10 minutes, then jolted awake like guilt slapped her. Noah didn't sleep. He kept his pocket watch in his hand until the ticking felt like a second heart. Callum sat across from them, reading a letter, just one eye's red jaw tight. He wasn't performing now. There were no executives here, no cameras, just fluorescent lights and fear, and the distant sound of carts rolling down a hallway. Evie arrived just after 6:00 p.m. Noah recognized her immediately because she moved like she didn't trust the ground. She was in jeans and a rain jacket, hair pulled back, eyes sharp. She stopped when she saw Callum like her body remembered every disappointment. Then her gaze shifted to Noah and Sophia. Who are they? She asked. Callum stood slowly. Evie, he said. This is Sophia Rios. And Noah. Evie's eyes narrowed. Why do I know your name? Noah's stomach dropped. Callum held up a hand. Because the office is buzzing, he said. Because people are gossiping instead of working. Evie looked at Noah's bare feet and frowned. He's just a kid, Noah bristled. I know. Evie's attention snapped to him. For a second, something softened. Then she looked back at Callum. Explain, she said. No speeches. Callum nodded and did something surprising. He sat down. He didn't loom. He didn't posture. He told her the truth in pieces. About the cabinet. About his mother's tapes. About Noah walking into his penthouse like a hurricane with a heartbeat. About Marisol in surgery. Evie listened without interrupting, but Noah could see the skepticism fighting every word. When Callum finished, Evie stared at him for a long time. You paid $250,000 for someone you met today, she said. Yes, Callum answered. Evie's jaw tightened. But you missed my college graduation because you had a meeting. Callum flinched. Yes. Evie's eyes stayed hard. So which version of you am I supposed to believe? Callum's voice broke. Believe the version that's sitting in a hospital instead of a boardroom. Evie's laugh came out sharp. That's still one day. Callum nodded, swallowing pain like it was medicine. Then don't believe me yet, he said. Just watch what I do next. Evie's gaze flicked to Sophia, then Noah. Sophia's voice was quiet, deadly honest. If you're using us, she said, I will burn you down with my bare hands. Evie blinked, then unexpectedly nodded like she respected that language. Same, Evie said. Callum's phone buzzed again. This time it was a calendar invite that shouldn't exist. Emergency board session 9:00 p.m. The Rainier room, Callum's face drained. Grant wasn't waiting for tomorrow. The second wave was coming. Callum stood and walked a few steps away, staring at the invite like it was a knife. Evie followed him. They're trying to push you out, she said, voice flat. Callum nodded once. Grant's been waiting for an opening. Evie's eyes narrowed. And you handed him one? Callum didn't defend himself. That was new, too. He looked at Evie. If I go, he said quietly, Sophia sits here alone. Noah sits here alone. And Marisol, he stopped. Evie's expression shifted conflict, then resolve. You stay, Evie said. Callum blinked. Evie held up her phone. I'll go. Callum stared at her like he didn't understand the words. They won't listen to you. Evie's voice sharpened. Try me. She looked at Noah. What's in that cabinet? She asked. Noah hesitated. Callum's eyes met his permission. Noah swallowed. Tapes, Noah said. Letters. And he said evidence. Evie's gaze hardened. Of what Grant's doing? Noah nodded. Evie exhaled through her nose. Okay, she said. Then we don't let Grant turn a kid's medical crisis into a corporate kidnapping. Sophia stood abruptly shaking. I don't want any of this, she whispered. I just want my daughter alive. Evie looked at her, softer now. Then we make sure she gets, that Evie said, and we make sure no one can threaten you for it. Callum reached into the folder and pulled out a tape labeled, Grant, do not trust him. Evie's eyes widened just a fraction. Callum's voice went low. My mother knew, he said, and she left this for a reason. Evie held out her hand. Give it to me. Callum hesitated. Not because he didn't want to, because giving it away meant letting someone else carry weight he'd avoided for years. Then he placed the tape in her palm. Evie closed her fingers around it like a weapon. I'll be back, she said, and turned to leave. Callum caught her wrist gently. Evie, he said, voice raw. Thank you. Evie didn't smile. Don't thank me, she said. Earn it. Then she was gone. Noah sat back down, heart pounding. Sophia sank beside him, staring at the surgery doors like she could will them open. Callum stood by the window, hands shaking, watching rain streak the glass. Noah clicked his pocket watch once. Tick, tick, tick. If you want the satisfying part, don't skip ahead because the most dangerous twist isn't the boardroom. It's what Grant Hale did next. At 8:12 p.m. Sophia's phone buzzed. She flinched like it hurt. Unknown number. She answered anyway because mothers don't get to ignore unknown numbers when their kid is on an operating table. Her face changed as she listened, color-draining eyes widening. Noah leaned in. Mom, Sophia's voice went thin. Who is this? She listened again, then whispered. No. Callum stepped closer. What is it? Sophia covered the phone and looked at him with terror. He says he's from your legal department, she whispered. He says the hospital payment might be reviewed. He says I need to sign something. Noah's stomach dropped. Callum's eyes went cold. Hand me the phone. Sophia hesitated. Callum held out his hand steady. Please. Sophia gave it to him. Callum lifted it to his ear. This is Callum Voss. A pause, then a voice Noah couldn't hear, clearly muffled by the phone. Callum's face hardened, then sharpened into something dangerous. No, Callum said, each syllable a blade. You will not contact this family again. Pause. If Grant sent you, Callum continued, tell him he's done. Pause. Callum's mouth tightened. And if you so much as hint to Harborview Billing that any payment is under review, I will personally walk into the Rainier room and burn your career to the floor. He ended the call. Sophia stared at him, shaking. They can do that, she whispered. Can they stop it? Callum looked at her, and for the first time, Noah saw shame like a bruise. People like Grant try, Callum said quietly, because they believe fear is leverage. Noah's voice came out hard. So what now? Callum inhaled slowly like he was choosing the next version of himself. Now, Callum said, we stop letting them use your daughter's life as a negotiation. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Harborview Billing Supervisor, Callum said when someone answered, I want written confirmation. The deposit is posted and cannot be reversed. Pause. Yes, Callum said. Email it to me and to Mrs. Rios. Now. He looked at Sophia. What's your email? Sophia blinked, like she'd never had anyone ask her that in a moment like this. It's Sophia. Rios. Callum nodded, typed waited. Then he did something Noah didn't expect. He turned his phone screen toward Sophia so she could see the confirmation when it arrived. Agency. Proof. Not just a promise. Sophia's shoulders shook with relief so sharp it looked like pain. Noah stared at Callum, chest tight. Callum met his eyes. I meant what I said, Callum murmured. I'm honoring the deal, and I'm protecting it. Noah nodded once. Then the nurse appeared. Not Dr. Patel, just a nurse with tired eyes and a careful smile. Marisol's repair is going well, she said. They've completed the first portion and her vitals are stable. Sophia made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Noah's legs went weak. Callum put a hand on Noah's shoulder, not possessive, not performative, just steady. The nurse continued. It's still a long procedure. But Dr. Patel is optimistic. When she left, Sophia wrapped Noah in a hug so tight he couldn't breathe. He let himself cry into her shoulder because he couldn't carry it alone anymore. Across from them, Callum stared at the surgery doors like he wanted to trade places with the kid on the table just to prove he could. Around 1:05 p.m., the Rainier Room live stream hit internal company channels. Grant Hale had called the emergency board session public to the company, to investors, to anyone he could make listen. He framed it as governance. Evie walked into that room alone with a cassette tape in her pocket and years of anger on her face. Noah didn't see it firsthand, but he heard about it later because the people who were there said the air changed the second she spoke. Grant started confident. He talked about instability, about erratic financial commitments, about reputational risk. He never said Marisol's name. Not once. Evie waited until he finished. Then she stepped to the microphone and said, "My grandmother built a vault none of you could open." Silence. Grant's smile tightened. "Evie, this isn't Evie," cut him off. "You don't get to manage the story if you refuse to honor the truth." She held up the cassette tape. Grant's eyes flickered. Just one crack, but Evie saw it. "This is labeled with your name," Evie said. "In her handwriting." 4 years old? Grant laughed nervously. "That could mean anything." Evie nodded. "So let's hear her say it." The board tried to object. Legal tried to object. Evie didn't. She plugged the tape into an old player someone found in facilities like the universe wanted it to happen. And Lenora Voss's voice filled the room. Not dramatic, not poetic, just clear. "I'm leaving this for the day you finally learn to listen, Callum," Lenora said. "And if Grant Hale is still near you when you do, I'm sorry. He is not who he pretends to be." Grant stood furious. "This is ridiculous." Lenora's voice continued steady as a metronome. "He lies with charm. He threatens with politeness. And he believes the company belongs to him more than it belongs to the truth." Grant's face went pale. Evie looked at the board. "You want stability?" she said. "Then, stop rewarding men who confuse control for leadership." She turned to Grant, eyes cold. "You tried to scare a mother while her child was on an operating table," Evie said. "That's not business. That's rot." Grant lunged for the player. Security stopped him. Phones recorded anyway. And in that moment, the moral verdict didn't come from Callum Voss. It came from the daughter who'd watched him choose work over family for years, finally watching him choose family over work. Evie looked back at the board, voice sharp. "You can vote however you want," she said. "But if you protect him, you're admitting what you value." The board didn't protect him. They suspended Grant, pending investigation, live in front of witnesses with investors watching. By midnight, Grant Hale's power was bleeding out through 1,000 leaks he couldn't patch, and Callum Voss was still in a children's hospital waiting room, staring at a door, choosing not to run. At 1:46 a.m., Dr. Patel finally walked out. Her surgical cap was off. Her face was exhausted, but she was smiling. Noah stood so fast his chair tipped back. Sophia's hand clamped onto his arm like she needed to anchor herself to reality. Callum rose slowly, hands shaking. Dr. Patel didn't drag it out. "She made it," Dr. Patel said. Sophia crumpled into a sob that didn't sound human. Noah couldn't breathe. His ears rang. His pocket watch ticked in his fist like it was counting him back into the world. "Doctor." Patel kept speaking gently. The repair held. "Her heart is stable. The next 24 hours are important, but she's out of the danger window that brought you here." Noah's knees gave out. Callum caught him without thinking. Noah didn't fight it. He just pressed his face into Callum's suit jacket and cried like a kid who had been pretending to be an adult for too long. Callum's voice broke above him. "You did it," Callum whispered. Noah shook his head against him. "We did," he managed. Sophia wiped her face with shaking hands and looked at Callum like she wanted to hate him and thank him at the same time. Callum met her gaze and didn't try to buy forgiveness with words. He just nodded once like a vow. When they were allowed into Marisol's recovery room, Noah barely recognized the peace on her face. Machines still hummed, monitors still blinked. But her chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm that didn't look like a fight. Sophia kissed her forehead. Noah took her hand. Callum stood at the back of the room, eyes wet, face hollowed out by emotion he couldn't outsource. Evie arrived just after 3:00 a.m. Rain in her hair, eyes bright with adrenaline and exhaustion. She stopped in the doorway, taking in the scene. The small girl asleep, the mother holding her, the barefoot boy gripping her hand, the billionaire standing behind them like a man who didn't know where to place his guilt. Evie looked at Callum. "Grant's suspended," she said quietly. "The board's opening an investigation. Legal is panicking." Callum nodded. "Thank you." Evie's eyes held his. "Don't thank me," she said again. "Earn it." Callum stepped closer. "Coffee," he said softly. "Once a week. No phone, no meetings." Evie's jaw tightened, then she nodded once. "If you miss one, we're done." Callum didn't smile. He looked relieved and terrified. "Understood," he said. Noah watched that exchange and felt something unfamiliar settle in his chest. Not magic. Not fairy tale. Just a man being given a small conditional chance and finally treating it like it mattered. 2 days later, while Marisol slept through her second post-op nap, Callum returned to Harborview with a banker, a lawyer, and paperwork that looked heavy enough to crush a normal person. Sophia sat across from him in a family consult room, arms crossed. Noah sat beside her with his pocket watch in his palm. Callum slid one document forward. "A trust," he said. "For Noah and Marisol, 50 million. Managed with third-party oversight. Your rules, not mine." Sophia's eyes narrowed. Why oversight? Callum didn't flinch. "Because you shouldn't have to trust me blindly," he said. "And because Grant taught me what happens when power has no leash." Sophia stared at the paper like it was a trap. Noah's voice was quiet. "It's real," Callum nodded. "It's real." Then Callum slid another document forward. "This," he said, "is separate." Sophia blinked. "What is it?" Callum exhaled. "A foundation," he said. "Not in my name, in yours." Noah frowned. Why Callum's eyes dropped to the folder of letters and tapes at his side. "Because I can't unread what my mother left me," Callum said. "And I can't pretend I didn't see what your family has been forced to survive." He looked at Sophia. "I don't want this to be a one-time rescue that makes me feel better," he said. "I want it to be a system that makes it harder for hospitals to hold children hostage behind deposits." Sophia's throat moved. "That's a big promise." Callum nodded. "Then judge me on what I build," he said. "Not what I say." Noah clicked his pocket watch shut. For the first time, the click didn't sound like desperation. It sounded like a door closing on the worst version of their life. Weeks passed. Marisol got stronger. Color returned to her cheeks like the world was giving her back. Noah went back to school and donated sneakers that actually fit. He still carried Grandpa's pocket watch. Not because he needed a miracle now, but because he didn't want to forget what got them through. Callum didn't become a saint. He lost deals. He apologized publicly. He stepped down as CEO for a period while an interim leader guided the company through investigation, something he chose before the board could force it. And that choice cost him pride. It cost him control. It cost him the illusion that he could outrun consequences. But it bought something else. It bought him the right to look his daughter in the eye without lying. One rainy Thursday months later, Noah stood outside the narrow spire again. This time he wore shoes. His backpack strap wasn't held by safety pins anymore, but his hands still looked like a kid who fixed things nails with dirt under them, calluses from turning tiny tools. He wasn't there to beg. He was there because Evie invited him. In a smaller conference room, no stage, no semicircle of suits, Callum sat with Sophia, Noah, Evie, and a pediatric nurse from Harborview. On the table sat a simple object, Grandpa's pocket watch open, ticking. Callum looked at it, then at Noah. "You know," Callum said quietly, "my mother would have liked you." Noah shrugged like he didn't know how to hold a compliment that big. Evie leaned back in her chair. "He doesn't do flattery," she said. Noah shot her a look. Evie smirked just a little. Sophia slid a folder across the table. 32 families, she said. "That's how many are in line right now?" Callum nodded. "We fund them," he said. The nurse's eyes widened. All of them, Noah spoke before anyone else could. "If we can," he said, "we should." Callum's mouth twitched, and for once it looked like a real smile. "That's what I'm learning," Callum said. "Money isn't proof you're right. It's proof you have responsibility." Later, when Noah and Sophia visited Marisol's new cardiologist, the waiting room felt different. Not because hospitals stopped being scary, but because fear wasn't alone anymore. Marisol walked in under her own power, holding Noah's hand more from habit than need. She looked up at him and grinned. "Hey," she said. "You still barefoot inside your brain?" Noah laughed. What does that even mean? Marisol shrugged. Like, you still feel everything. Noah looked down at Grandpa's pocket watch in his palm. Tick, tick, tick. He thought of the cabinet in the penthouse, the executives' laughter dying in their throats, Callum's face breaking open when he read his mother's words, Evie standing in a boardroom and refusing to let cruelty win, Sophia refusing to be intimidated when the world tried to turn her daughter into paperwork. He clicked the watch shut and slipped it back into his pocket. Yeah, Noah said softly. I still feel everything. Marisol's grin widened. Good, she said, because that's how you know what matters. And somewhere far above the waterfront, behind glass and money and reputations, an old brass cabinet sat empty now, its job complete. It wasn't guarding riches. It was guarding a lesson. That the impossible doesn't open for the loudest person in the room. It opens for the one who finally learns to listen.